Jennifer McCoy.
Yeah.
We don't have little kids.
And then he can wear his PJs.
No,
Not
we actually try to get dressed. Even though nobody can see us, we get to see them.
Yeah, I understand.
But it's so funny. My normal greeting is you look better on the screen than you do in person.
Yeah, and Gary and Kathy are so great.
I cried so
They're so great.
You what?
Yeah, yeah.
cried so said that.
Gary's?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even know he was having it.
Kidney stone.
Oh, that's right. Yes, I did know. I didn't know what the procedure was. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, we have
No, I
some
don't
that
know.
have chronic
I don't know.
health problems, and
That's
so we don't expect to see
Yeah,
that,
from what I
maybe not.
remember, they were
But then we have
diagnosing
others.
what they were going through.
They are fine,
They find out what they
but
were
they're
going
still
through.
not
They knew what they were going to do.
You
Did they
know,
decide they were going to
which,
go sonic or
you know,
to burst
they
them?
need
Or?
to be.
I do not know.
Well, I have asthma,
She's gonna be
so
taken
that's
care of.
you know,
Yeah.
immune
I'll
deficiency.
bet.
Yeah.
I'll bet.
And I have rheumatoid arthritis,
That's
which is immune
uncomfortable.
deficiency.
So
So I'm wearing a mask a lot, but I'm not wearing a mask for me. I'm fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
Oh,
Tara.
actually, I have to
Yeah,
get a booster because
Yeah,
I had Pfizer. Did
Yeah,
you
we
hear that on the
had
news?
them up last week.
Yeah.
We were able to
People have to get a
Both
booster.
sisters.
Yeah, but I don't think it's gonna have
So
to
we
be
had
for a
15 in our
while.
home.
Well, they're
Was
still.
the
I
party.
haven't had it.
It's good.
I guess it was.
It was good.
Literally said,
Yeah.
I know we're
That's
fully
exactly
vaccinated
right.
too, you
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
both,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
what we had.
it was
Pfizer.
tight.
But they were. I
It
thought
was
they were
tight. It
saying
was a lot.
that you know
It
that
was
you
really
might have to have a once a year or something.
Appreciate.
No, it said that they're thinking about giving a Pfizer booster in about 3 months.
Sure.
Oh, really?
So all the
Sure.
people that
Well, and it was kind of tight
vaccinated with
quarters. It was
Pfizer.
at 1,200 square feet,
Well, the Delta
15
variant's
people.
going on.
So-
My husband
so,
is so paranoid. He
we-
said,
Daniel and I and all the kids
now the Delta
slept out on the
virus,
lawn.
the Delta variant.
And so we just put up
We don't
tents.
know.
And it was
They
this
said
time of year,
that-
it was nice
that
and
it
cool
was-
in the evenings. It wasn't hot, it wasn't cold, so it was the perfect time for it. But it was
Against it
a lot
too.
more.
That it, what you had
It
was
really
already
nice.
taken care of. The new one that's coming in.
Maybe.
I
We'll
don't
see.
know. Which
Well,
congregation are
He
you
used to
from?
live up here. He goes
Ferndale,
to church at
Portal
Leander
Way,
near where we
straight
live.
up.
Way north.
Ran into
Way
him in the
north.
parking lot.
Oh,
Way
my
north.
family's from Ferndale.
Yeah.
His
I know that.
house looks like
My
Bill.
mom's
Well, it was
cousins
Bill.
lived in Ferndale.
And
Oh,
the
up there, but they're
Washington.
not church
Yeah.
But I'm very familiar with
Yeah.
Ferndale.
Oh,
I
it's
love it.
solid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But they used to
Beautiful
live,
area.
I've been to your
I think it's pure.
Have you?
My husband was
Yeah.
right in Seattle to
What-
Vancouver by Christ.
So
And
you
I
know-
came.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. Yeah.
And it's a
Good.
great
I've known him for
congregation.
years.
Good.
down in Austin,
Yeah.
Texas.
Yeah, we're 13 miles inside of the Canadian
Come up
border.
here.
So you are.
My husband lives in Ferndale.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
well, see, I've had cousins in Ferndale too.
Yeah.
Forever. My uncle's been up there forever. He went to Western Washington University.
Oh,
Never
yeah.
left.
You sure?
Yeah, it's a great place to grow. And
Yeah, you still know
Yeah.
it. It is good. I still
we used
love
to
it.
say going.
How is it?
50,000. And the last census, I think.
Where do you say your
So,
faith lies?
so
Where do you say
now I
you
think
love
it
it?
must be about 90.
Fifty-five is like the official company.
Yeah.
It's grown. Ferndale has it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Oh.
I'll text
Well,
her and tell her that I'll
God bless you guys.
Oh, isn't that terrible?
Yeah, it is.
So,
Yeah.
My house goes up about
Oh.
$9,000 or $10,000 every 6 months. Our Zillow keeps sending me.
For
Well, our
taxes.
taxes went up. They should have won.
Oh my goodness.
The value of our house went up $30,000.
Well, you can,
Yeah.
oh, I hear it now.
It's just Charles people.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
Sounds like she's screaming. Or am I
What's that green card? It's hilarious. They send me that
Madison?
That's the one I'm talking
green
about.
card.
Mhm.
And
Madison.
they never charge you. It's just.
all right. Good morning again, everyone. It's time to get started, I guess. You got all the technical stuff good?
Grandma.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'll text Holly and tell her that I'll be home between,
Uh-oh.
a little after 5 and till 7 anyway. Okay, I'll pick up the cake.
It sounds like it's coming from the.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
all right.
to make sure she's
Speaker.
coming, it's okay.
I don't know if it's okay that we're listening to someone's phone conversation.
Somebody's playing in.
Weird. That's sloppy now.
Okay, so here's the.
Somebody's got a
It's
microphone.
my
on their
husband, the other
flash.
Oh.
All right, I'll run and tell her.
Sandra and Helen.
That's funny.
That's
Oh.
weird.
No.
I think that conversation still going yesterday.
Derrick,
Oh, it's from yesterday?
Because it was my sister's birthday yesterday, and Ollie's my sister.
The other place.
So it just that's.
You want me to talk to him?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Sounds like they're having some talking issues. And it's over. Okay, very good. Well, I'm just going to say a prayer before we begin. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for this time we were able to gather together, to look at your word, to accept it, and to apply it, to live it out in a world that at times is hostile to your people, but to shine your light and your love to a world that needs it so desperately. Give us the grace to be your people in a world that rejects you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So, yesterday we looked at the theme of God's love for us, for His Son, expressed in our purpose in our lives for Him. And today we're going to look at one other element of love, and that is our love for each other as an evidence of the truth of who we are. So before we begin, I heard about a preacher who, before services, he got up and he said, after services, we're going to have a meeting of the board. So if everyone can just, if the board can just come to the back of the auditorium and we'll discuss some key issues. So after services, a group of guys gathered together in the back of the auditorium, and there was a stranger in their midst, and the preacher looks over at him and goes, "Sir, this is a private meeting. It's just for the board. If we can help you, let us know, but this is just a private meeting for the board." And the stranger, the visitor, said, "Well, I'm just as bored as anyone here after that service." I hope this isn't that. But I want to look at a couple of passages. Yeah, I wanted to look at a couple of passages from the book of Romans before we kind of get into our study. Be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourselves. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of a low position. Do not be conceited. When therefore, let us stop passing judgment on one another. Instead, make up your minds not to put any stumbling block or obstacle in your brother's way. Another one, accept one another, then just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God. Those are just a few passages from one of Paul's books, just the book of Romans, just a few passages about who the church should be with regard to one another. The church is supposed to be a group of people who are rooted and grounded in love, as Paul says in Ephesians 3. So yesterday we looked at that element of the Father's love for us, the concept of purpose being driven out of the Father's love for us. This week, I want to look at love from a different angle, or not this week, this day, today. I'm so used to saying last week and this week. Today, we're going to look at the love that we have for each other. So, in John chapter 13, verse 34 and 35, Jesus gives his disciples a new commandment, he says. He says, "A new commandment I give to you. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, all men will know that you're my disciples, if you love one another." So I just want to take a second, reread that passage. And as we're reading it, we're just examining how we love each other, how we live this passage out on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to reread it, and just with the hope that we're examining ourselves and our lives as we read it. "A new commandment I give to you. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, all men will know you're my disciples, if you love one another. When I first started coming to church, so yesterday I talked about kind of my life in my family, just a very dysfunctional family, raised in just a high degree of addiction and abuse and everything else. First started coming to church. So the first time I was ever in a church building, like a Christian church building, it was a evening study. Like I had previous week gotten really, I was a partier. And we had a pretty serious party the week before. And kind of came to a realization that I needed to be fixed, right? And that I wasn't in charge of my own life. Anyway, so I found a church building. It was near my house, and wanted to come in and steal a Bible because I didn't want to pay for one. But I thought I could sneak in, be in the back, grab a Bible, and then leave. Problem was I went in, and the services weren't in the main building, the main part, the auditorium or whatever. They weren't there. They were in the back room, so I had to walk around the building and come in, and everyone is kind of in a C, kind of like this, but the door was like right here. So I had to walk in front of everyone. Late. On purpose, I was late. And so I was like, well, this is going to be tough. So I found a seat in the back, sat next to someone, and the guy who was teaching said, we're in Revelation, like 18. This is my first time in the church, and we're in the book of Revelation. So, hard start. And then, so I pulled I thought was Bible out, and all I knew was Revelation was in the back. So I flipped to the back, and a lady, still a member of the church there, gave me a calm little nudge and said, that's a hymnal, not a Bible. So she grabbed the Bible, flipped it to the back, opened it up to the right passage, and we started studying it. But the problem was after class, I wanted to steal that Bible, but everyone was just surrounding me, and it just didn't give me an opportunity to tuck it in my coat pocket. I couldn't do it. So finally, I'm like, can I just have this? And they were like, yes, absolutely, have to. They wanted me to have a Bible. So that week, I got a card from someone in the congregation, a handwritten card, and I had no intention to come back. Zero intention to come back. But the handwritten card in the mail, and remember, the group of people that I hung out with, we all did drugs together, partied, and everything that goes along with it. So I got this card, and I thought, well, there's something there. I was surrounded by people. I remember one guy, older guy, he was in the Marine or in the Navy during World War II. He told me that Sunday evening service, he told me about being in the Navy and during a really intense battle on the Yorktown. He prayed and said, and he wasn't a Christian at the time. He said, God, if you get me out of this, I'll devote the rest of my life to you. And that stuck with me. And he did. I mean, his entire life was in service to the Lord. So that stuck with me. People surrounding me stuck with me. That letter, that card is what brought me back the next Sunday. So I came that Sunday and I started reading that Bible that I wanted to steal. Read it every day, reading more and more and more, getting a little bit more engaged, still kind of hesitant about making any real connections with that church. And so the more I read, the more I got involved. I was hanging out with different people, going to breakfast with Archie every Monday. And then my little sister was having some issues with the guy she was married to. And she called me and said, this is not going to work with this guy. She had twin boys. And they were a few months old at that point. And I said, well, I'm coming down and I'll come get you. So she lived in Redmond at the time. We were in Ellensburg. I was in Ellensburg. So we crossed the mountains, brought her back over to Ellensburg to live with me. And I just started cleaning out my house of all the stuff, so the house was available for kids to be in. 3 months prior, it wouldn't have been, right? It wouldn't have been safe for for twins to be, 4-month-old twins to be in. Would not have been a safe place for them. It was at that point. So I think God was working there. And then she asked me if she could come to church with me. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know how the church is going to react to a single mom with twins and everything else. I was like, I don't know. So I kind of gave her a little bit of warning before church. I said, I don't know. I kind of know these people, but I don't know how they're going to react to a single mom and everything else, because I had no Christian background. I mean, you got to remember that. Zero. I just didn't know. So remember, right after closing prayer, amen is said, and both of us look up, and there's just this swarm of women right behind us. Can I hold the baby? Can I hold the baby? I mean, just can I say gaggle? A whole bunch of people just surrounding us and holding the babies, showing so much love and concern for my little sister. The next day, stack of diapers on our front doorstep, formula, women and men, husband and wife, babysitting the the twin boys, and giving my little sister some respite, just surrounding us with so much love. And it was then that I said, you know what, there is something absolutely different here. There's a family here. And a week later is when I decided to come forward and be baptized. It was that evidence that there's something different among these people that I have not seen anywhere else. That's what changed my thinking. I had known I needed to be baptized, but I hadn't been shown what the difference was until that point. There was something so radically different there. And now, I'm going to hold off on them. My little sister and her family. And hold off. So, Jesus says, the world will know that you're my disciples. All the world, all people will know you're my disciples by your love for one another. If he's right on that point, and Jesus is right on that point. I think our modern Christian culture has a couple things backwards. Jesus doesn't say, the world will know you're my disciples because of your youth ministry, or because of your VBS, or your exciting worship service, or endless string of activities. That's not how Jesus says the world will know you're my disciples. Jesus says the world will know you're my disciples because of your love for one another. That is the primary evidence. That's the primary evidence that we are Jesus' disciples, is that we love each other, that we serve each other, that we regard one another as more important than ourselves. And that is one of the earliest lessons that I learned in the church that I now serve as a minister for. After I got done with school, they asked me if I'd come back, and I said absolutely, because of who they are, right? Because of their character as a church. Right? I wanted to come back and serve them as they had served me. Jesus doesn't say the world will know you're my disciples because other people love you, but because of your love for one another. Right? He puts the responsibility on each one of us to love each other. Right? It's not my responsibility to make my brothers and sisters love me. It's my responsibility to love my brothers and sisters. Right? It's outward focused, not inward focused. I need to be a person of love for my brothers and sisters and pray that God is working on each one of my brothers and sisters so that they love me as well. Right? So it's reciprocal. Absolutely is reciprocal. So later on, Jesus says, this is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, than to lay one's life down for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you strangers or servants any longer, because a servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another. Right, and that's chapter 15, 12, and 17. So according to Jesus, loving one another, laying down our lives for one another, laying down our wants, our desires for the health of the body. I mean, when I think about all the ministry that was done, my little sister in that, there's so many people who carved so much time out of their lives to help her. I remember when my little brother, because I had custody of him at the time, right, from the time he was 14 till the time he was 18. I had full legal custody of him because, as I brought out yesterday, so many things in my life or my family life had degenerated to where my little brother and little sister needed homes that weren't with our mom and dad. So my little brother was mine custody-wise. Right around the time he was 18, it's the time that I found Jesus, and I was renting a basement apartment from one of the members in the congregation, and found my little brother selling cocaine out of my house. And I called, because I didn't know what to do. I called one of the men in the congregation at 3 a.m, because I was a baker at the time. So baker's hours, 2 a.m. So I was always up really, really early. So I called him at 3 a.m. and said, hold on. He came over with a cup of coffee and a bowl of oatmeal. He was, just because he knew it was going to be a long thing and he needed breakfast. But he spent 4 or 5 hours with my brother and I trying to help us, because I was so young. Bryce was 18 at the time. I was 25, 24, 25. And he took that time to sit down with us and just talk to us, and talk to both of us together, talk to me individually, my little brother individually. The way things turned out, I ended up needing to call the cops on my little brother, but that willingness of that brother in Christ to come over, spend the time at 3 or 4 in the morning, right around there, was, again, something I hadn't seen. He was able to lay down his sleep for his brother in Christ. Right? That's the world will know you, my disciples, because of your love for one another. Laying down our lives for one another is how Jesus defines it. Right? Laying down our wants, our needs for the health of the body. Doing those things that Jesus has commanded to us. So I think the church is designed purposefully by Jesus to be anti-consumeristic. Right? It's not about getting, receiving. It's about giving. Right? And that's his definition of love. Laying down our lives for one another. Right? We're so surrounded and permeated in our culture with the need to receive a service that we pay for, and too often that attitude is brought into a church. Right? And if you talk to people who are shopping around, I'm looking for a place to be fed. I'm looking for a people, and that is not the attitude. So as soon as we receive that or hear that, we should be working to change that mentality. That we expect it coming in, but recognize that attitude needs to be changed. It's not about what you're getting; it's about what you're giving. It's about laying our lives down for each other, and Jesus shows us what that looks like. A pure, selfless act. Probably the only selfless act in the history of humanity was Christ on the cross. Right? He gained absolutely nothing by giving his life. He already had full glory and honor with God from before creation. He didn't need to lay his life down for his own sake. It was for everyone else. It's a purely selfless act. And that's our example, is that we live for each other, not expecting something in return. And that's the major thing that's lacking in our society is a group of people who are honestly, sincerely concerned for one another, an actual family. It's the blood of Jesus that binds us together. And it's an eternal bond. It's not a bond that can be easily broken like so many other bonds in our society, whether it's work or friendships or any, even marriage in our society is not taken seriously as a bond. It's viewed as non-essential. We don't have an eternal bond with our TV. How often are we not willing to lay our TVs down, or time with our TVs down, for fellowship? Right, not you guys, but other people. Church is meeting, but this show's on. We got TiVo. We don't have an eternal bond with our TV. We're not eternally bound to our hobbies. You know, there's so many distractions. And my eldest daughter, started softball a couple of years ago, and they want to have games all the time. All the time. Wednesdays, Sundays, and it can be all-consuming. We're that close to putting her on the All-Star team. But it's like, that's 2-3 Sundays a month where we're driving 100 miles to go play a game, and we set Margaret down and we said, okay, Margaret, she's 10. She's in one of the classes, the kids' classes. She's 10. We said, hey, kiddo, if you join the All-Star team, you're going to have to miss 3 Sundays a month. She's like, I don't want to do it then. Just like that. And it wasn't because she likes my preaching. It was because of her church family. It's because in the church, she has closer grandmas and grandpas than I ever had biologically. She has closer bonds with her spiritual grandparents than I ever had with my biological grandparents. And then she would miss that. She wouldn't be able to be embraced by that. She would miss a crucial element of her life. Right? That she just said no. It wasn't a hard decision for her. She said, I can't miss seeing Joanne. I can't miss it. And she just went down the list. I don't want to miss it. I mean, there's not a ton of kids her age. It's not her friends. Her kid friends that she's not wanting to miss. It's her connection with older people, with another generation, right? With people that she knows care for her. That's what she just couldn't miss. So again, we have this feeling like we need to have a big, exciting program and everything else, and all these things. That's just not statistically. There's very little correlation to how dynamic youth ministry is to long-term child faithfulness. Whatever group you're looking statistically, the key indicator of long-term faithfulness is commitment of the parents. Religious commitment. I'm not saying that youth ministry isn't needed or valuable. I'm saying just like education or anything else, the key is the home and how committed parents are to their church family, right? And because of our commitment to our church family, my girls are exposed to people in the church every single day. And they help out, they volunteer at the clothing bank. Anytime there's a paint party or any other work day, they're at the church building with people, 50 years older than them. Shoulder to shoulder, working, having conversations. Right? Those are the kinds of things that instill a sense of belonging, being needed, being valuable within the family of God. Those are the evidences that Jesus is talking about. The world will know you're my disciples because you love each other. So I guess one of my points is we put a lot of emphasis on all these special things, all these programs or whatever, but those aren't normal life, right? As great as things like this are, that's not normal life, right? It's great to be encouraged and inspired and sent on, but that's not the everyday things of life. the everyday things of life, inviting people over for meals throughout the week, going over to a member's house for a meal, for a time to pray, time to hang out with other church members, right? A time to share spiritual engagement with one another, serving the community together as a church. Within our congregation, we just had kind of a renovation-ish to our building. So a bunch of families getting together, painting the church building together, painting the bookcases in one of the classrooms together. We have someone who's, say, 65 with someone who's 30 and another kid who's 10. You have massive intergenerational group there. It's running the gamut from age groups, all together, shoulder to shoulder, listening to gospel music, praying as they paint, just being together. Those are the mundane, normal things. A brother or sister showing up at your work to pray with you, to talk to you, to meet with you on your lunch break, just hang out and encourage you. That's in those mundane issues of life, those real life things, not the big extravagant things, but those real life things. My wife just opened a new art studio on Main Street in Ellensburg. Ellensburg is basically one street. There's not a whole lot of people in Ellensburg. There's one main street and a couple of little side streets. It's not very big. Residence-wise, we're 10,000 people. The college makes it 20, but they're here and they're hit and miss. Anyway, so about 10,000 people. So it's not a very big community. She's got a new art studio on Main Street. It's 2,200 square feet. So it's a large building. It's in an old historic, I think the building was done in like 1889 or something. Historic building, really cool. Underneath it, you can lift up the thing and there's like a little creek because it was farmland. So there's a little like canal that's running underneath their studio. It's pretty cool. But so she just opened that up and it's just one big hall, her studio. So her main thing is teaching art classes. And her motto for teaching art classes is she wants to smuggle the gospel into the hearts of unsuspecting pagans. That's her motto for teaching classes. So what she's been able to do is create an environment where people don't argue about politics, where people don't do any of those things. They just reflect on and help and create beauty. And we believe that beauty all comes from God. So they're able to express a creative heart, which is expressing the image of God. Anyway, so she just opened that, but she needed a place to create and a place to do her book work, and then a place to teach. So I just called a couple guys real quick and said, hey, can you help me put a partition in, just drywall and a frame. The next day, I had two guys in her studio. We threw up the partition so quickly. I'd never built a partition, so I didn't really know what I was doing. And they just came in immediately, and we put it up. And it's like that. I didn't have to worry about anything. One of the guys was an old carpenter, but it was just such an encouragement to know that if I had a need, knew where to go, called them up. They came. We put up the partition, put up the drywall, got it going within a few hours. But it's those mundane issues of life. It's not a big extravagant. It was just one of those mundane things. We have several members in our congregation who have a good bit of property, so they have like eggs and or chickens. Eggs come from chickens. So they have chickens and whatnot, and big gardens, and they'll always bring produce in from their gardens or eggs for their chickens and just hand them out to various members. So those mundane things. It's those mundane things of life. One member saying, hey, I saw these shoes at Fred Meyer, and I thought of your girls. Here you go. So those normal, mundane things of life that show our love for each other, that help us feel needed, valuable, taken care of. We sometimes we forget how important those mundane things are, those typical, ordinary things of life. And the love of Jesus being infused into those typical things is just so valuable. It creates an environment where we all feel like we have a part. We all feel needed. Like I said, like Jesus said, that is the evidence that we are his disciples. So Jesus, again, doesn't say the world will know you're my disciples by the events he put together. Didn't say because of your exciting worship, music, whatever, your youth, whatever. Said the world will know you're my disciples by your love for one another. And he demonstrates that love by going to the cross. He lays his life down. I think all of us have several things in our lives that we could lay down for our brothers and sisters. There are several things that hold us back from imitating Jesus better, from being his representations on earth, and whatever those things may be. Theological hobby horse on a non-essential issue that I causes me to mistrust one of my brothers and sisters. Whatever that is, there are so many non-essential issues that we just allow to put barriers between us and our brothers and sisters within our congregation. Can we put those down and allow ourselves to love one another? Hobbies. There are so many activities. I have known several people who quit the church not out of anything besides they want more recreation time. Dirt biking. Couldn't put down dirt biking for the church. There are so many things, and I think that we consistently need to ask ourselves, what do I need to put down? What do I need to lay down for the health and for the betterment of my brothers and sisters? How can I reflect Jesus better? How can I show his love by laying something down? The world, as we've discussed here and there within the different speakers, is becoming radically more secular. Radically more secular. Right? And what that means is we're not allowing ourselves to receive spiritual engagement. That before we had more of a porous nature where we could take in new information that was kind of contrary to what we believed and process it. And today everything's just buffering, right? We have a buffered kind of non-porous self where we might put on a facade like we care, we engage, but if new information comes in, we just slough it off. We just don't care. Like water off a duck's back. It's becoming more and more secular. And I think a big part of that is because everything's more and more commercial. Right? The people are kind of tired of being manipulated by ads, by media, by news, by everything. Everything is geared towards, pulling you and your money and your resources and your time towards it. And Jesus's example is the exact opposite. It's giving. Each of us giving rather than taking. Right? So the church isn't a place for taking, it's a place for giving ourselves. And younger kids see through advertisements and kind of hucksterism very, very quickly. And they know when they're being sold. And there's a rejection of religion a lot of times because of the salesmanship that happens within religion. And what Jesus calls us to is the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite of salesmanship. It's an example of people who are called by him to give and to be his family. Like if salesmanship would have been part of what happened in my early coming, I wouldn't have come to Jesus. If they would have been selling me on something that had nothing to do with the way that church operated, had nothing to do with it. They weren't trying to sell me anything. They were committed to giving. That's what brought me in, and that's the conversion from. Most people who come to Jesus because 90% because of a friend or family member bringing them to church. Right? There's some like 3 or 4% of people who do what I did and just walk in the door. That's not typical. But for all of them, there's a need that's met. And that deep need is connection and family. The primary evidence that we belong to Jesus and that He has radically changed us remains undeniable, and that's expressed in love. Love for one another. That's what people need. And along with the secularism in our society, family is just, the family unit has been destroyed across the board. So what do people need? Family. And that's exactly what we're geared towards. So, right now, there's kind of a, maybe apathy towards society when we have exactly what society needs to flourish. We have a family that's called by an example of selfless love. The church is primed right now in our society to cause a massive change. We just embrace that and allow ourselves to lay down those things that are hindering us from loving our brothers and sisters. The time we got left, any comments or questions or anything like that? Oh, right, sorry. I told you I'd come back to my little sister. She married awesome Christian man, my little sister did. They have 3 kids together. No, they have 2 kids together, Joel and Lydia. And then the boys, the twins. So they have 4 kids. They're integral parts of their congregation in Moses Lake. They're thriving spiritually. They're just awesome, vibrant young Christians. A couple here can attest to that. How radically Christ and His church have changed and benefited them. My older sister, after years of working and praying with her and everything else, just came out of Mormonism a year and a half ago. She was baptized. And her whole family. Because of the love of one congregation, that's 3 whole family units that have been changed. And that will be changed forever. Right? So again, the love that we have for each other is vital. It's so vital. So one of the things I just want to encourage is look at those things that we can lay down. Look at those things you can lay down. And just be willing to say, you know what, for Christ's sake, for the good of the body, laying it down. Jesus laid down everything for us. What can I lay down for Him? So any right here.
Bryce doing?
Bryce OD'd in 2017. Our mom died in 2016, and he was on kind of a good path, and then that tragedy just it sent him back into drugs and alcohol, and he became a hobo, like a legit hobo, like riding the rails across the country. So he saw, I think, almost all of the lower 48 on a train. So that part's cool. I told him several times, I go, I could live your life for about a week, just like a vacation span, and then I couldn't do it anymore because just back and forth all across the country. He'd get stuck in Chicago, and I guess that train yard is massive. And he said he was stuck in a train yard in Chicago for a week. Just couldn't get out. Get on a train, it would take like a day loop and then be back in the same place. He just couldn't get out. So yeah, but that's where he passed, was in Chicago. It was heroin and fentanyl. Yeah. But you hear from, because we had a big service for him at our church building, and kids from all over the country rode trains into Ellensburg and attended his memorial. And they all said he carried a Bible with him, and he read it, and they said that they had a Thanksgiving for him a few months before he passed. A bunch of them said he prayed for our meal, and just they said it was powerful prayer. And so that part was really touching for me, at least. But yeah, he was a hurt, broken kid, broken kid. And that is so many in our society right now. So many. Homelessness is on such a huge rise. And one of the things that he would always say is that the people that cared for them, the people that would bring them supplies, help them out, were Christians. Were at least people who called themselves Christians. Maybe not how we define it, but people who said they loved Jesus and said, here, in Jesus' name, here. Prayed with them, gave them water, gave them food, and said, I still have a little dog tag that one lady from a church made for all of the railroad kids. That's what made a difference in all those kids' lives, were people who said they love Jesus and here. So, yeah. Back.
Derrick, just kind of going back to what you were talking about, just the daily mundane things.
Yes.
Of course, working with Mountain States Children's
Right.
Home, I was counseling with a boy that came from a state foster home, abusive, physically abusive, angry child that came in. And we had a guy that took him off campus and just did good things with him. And Ken was this boy's name, and he came in one time counseling with me, and he says, Randy, this guy's doing all these things for me, and he says, I want to do something back. Can you teach me how to love? He asked me that, and and that was years ago. And I just sit there, well, Ken, you take out his trash, you wash his car, you do, some mundane things.
Those normal things.
The normal things. And 3 times he asked me, he says, teach me how to love. And I knew I wasn't getting it. But then he said, Randy, I know how to hate, but I don't know how to love. And that really hit me, because I grew up in a home where I was loved.
Right.
And if I had to go think that I was, how to hate somebody, it was void. I just don't have that.
Right.
But I know I made them angry at people, but I couldn't say I hated someone.
Right. Yeah.
But it really helped me to understand in regards to teaching Christ's love.
Right.
Through the example and, just the mundane things.
Right.
And how important that is to instill it in people.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it is. It's so vital, and we have an event-centered culture, and if those events lead to more love, or if they're generated by love for each other, great. I'm not against any of that, but it's those normal, everyday opportunities that we have. So many opportunities. We too often focus on living for Jesus as the things that we don't do. And I think there's so many opportunities for those things that we can do. Right? There's opportunities all around us every single day for ways to love our neighbor, ways to love each other. And some of them might seem silly. I mean, grabbing some zucchini and bringing them over to a brother or sister's house in our minds might seem silly. It's not. It's not silly. It means that to that person, you've been thinking about them, you care about them, that they matter to you. Right? It's not about the zucchini. It's not the zucchini. It's not the eggs. Any other comments or questions?
Is your dad still alive?
No, yes, sorry. Yeah, I guess. He's alive, I think. I'm not positive. I'm pretty sure he's alive. Like I said, I don't trust him. Forgiveness is there. The trust is not. Talked to him in 2009.
You have to be wise for your family too.
Yeah. There's danger that I'm willing to let my kids experience, and then there's danger that I'm not.
Yeah.
And like I said, the last time I saw my dad outside of a jail or courtroom was him coming after me with a hammer.
Oh.
So yeah, that's not happening. Any other comments or questions, or any maybe experiences that you guys have with the love of Christ being demonstrated in a powerful way for you. Okay.
I taught in a public school for a while,
Right.
and you could always tell the kids who needed the love because they needed the hugs,
Yeah.
and you were prevented from hugging. I did it anyway.
Good. Good for you.
That didn't get me in trouble. Feeding the kids that needed it is what got me and my wife in trouble. We were told we couldn't do it. So I believe.
Yeah.
I'm now substituting in a small Christian school in Puyallup. About 400 students total, 7th through 12th. Still get hugs. But it's a whole different atmosphere from public to private.
Right.
And I'm so thankful and blessed to be there.
Right.
Substituted 10 years. Then I went away for 2 years and worked in the early learning center where I got the love from little 4 and 5-year-olds.
That's great.
I called it knee hugs.
Yeah.
And I loved every bit of it. I'm back at the high school now, and I got to start subbing again in May after back surgeries and things where I couldn't do much of anything. But I'm back on the sub list for this next fall. And I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was at a restaurant in Pure last Sunday after services, and sitting there with Terry and Dave Williamson from Puyallup. We're having lunch, and this family walks in, and I look over, and one of the little girls says, "Hi, Mr. Kyle." Here it is, out of school, but she acknowledged me, and I went over and talked with the family a few minutes. But you could tell the kids in the high school, in the public school, who needed that love. I sat down with one boy. He was living under a bridge. He was living under a bridge. Another one was living in a hotel room by himself. Another one was living in his car.
These are high school kids.
High school kids. Family's totally dysfunctional. And you reach out and you do what you can. Right. Really sticking your neck out and getting it chopped off.
Yeah. Right.
I appreciate
it. Comes at a cost. Yeah.
And I appreciate what Mountain States does.
Absolutely.
We know one person that was there several years ago.
Yeah.
And the trouble that she was going through. It's the love that we have for each other. I was just reading through a little bit of John that Jesus fed 5,000. They came around and he says, "You're not here for the lesson, you're here because I fed you."
Mm-hmm.
And then you read a little bit further, how many of them walked away? The love was there from him.
Right.
But so often people don't know how to return that love.
Right. Out of the lepers that Jesus cleansed, who the one came back and is thankful. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. Thank you so much, you. Appreciate that. God bless you guys. And we're over time. But yeah, God bless you.
Thank you
so much.
Derrick.
Thank you.